Thanks for tuning into the Chicken Ranch Podcast. This is episode 9. And our guest today on the program is Autry Fulbright, the former bass player for Trail of Dead. And he is the current bass player for Off, featuring Keith Morris from Circle Jerks. And he is curating the Museum of the Future Present, which is an installation here in Austin at Native Hostel. And it runs through the end of the year. And it's an installation of just really cool visuals and sounds and several pop-up art installations and performances. Off played here last night at Native. It's a great conversation with Autry. Great guy, really super creative person, and I know you'll be hearing a lot more from him. And thanks for tuning in. Thank you for coming on today, man. I really enjoyed the party last night.
Yeah, thank you.
You were born in L.A. and lived in Culver City growing up. What brought you to Austin?
Trail of Dead, honestly. I'd been playing in different bands over the course of several years, most of my adult life. And so I'd been to South by Southwest and was in Austin intermittently for performances here. But when I joined Trail of Dead, them being an Austin-based band, it made sense for me to start coming here more frequently. And then eventually the whole band moved here to start a record called Lost Songs in 2012. So this is when I moved here for about 3 years, from 2012 around January until June of 2015, and then I moved back to LA.
Okay, I mean, you played the Trail of Dead, the last record as well too, or
yeah, every record from 2011's Down of the Dead to 2020's what is that? The Godless Void.
And you're a busy musician / curator the past year.
I am, yeah. Like primarily I work in like music management and creative strategy, some creative direction. I have a company called Enjoy Cult Classics, which does unique products for different artists like Shabazz Palaces, Hannibal Buress, Horror. I work with Flying Lotus and Thundercat in the capacity of, operations, management, like creative development, and some art direction.
Are you working with Thundercat now? You play bass there, or did you?
I don't play with him. I'm part of his management team. I work with him like a lot of aspects of his day-to-day and live show operations, designing stuff with him for merchandise, for products, just doing a lot of operations and like strategic development.
Yeah, he does a lot of just everything beyond music too, it seems like.
Yeah,
he's got multimedia thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think that's important, and that's probably why I was so adamant to create a space like I have at Native Hostel with the Museum of the Future Present, to create these alternative ways for artists to engage with their audience where they don't even necessarily have to be present, but there is their presence there. It's something that's definitely valuable during these very tumultuous times.
Exactly. That's a great idea. I mean, it's a fantastic idea, and I'm glad we bumped into you a couple of weeks ago because I didn't really realize this was going on after Mesmerize had left. And it's Museum of the Future Present.
That's correct.
Correct. I call it Museum of the Future Present. Okay. And it goes on until the end of the year. Currently,
yeah. As we all know, that we have to roll with the punches now, so it could be longer. We'll just see. Right now, it's slated to the end of the year, but that to me is less important than the actual present, and there's going to be a lot of things happening over the next few months with different activations, different artists that are going to be involved, like Cinematic Orchestra, a band called Fucked Up from Toronto, and Zella Day, and other artists that I work with. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of cool activations for the time being, and we'll see how long we can keep it going.
Yeah, Cinematic Orchestra, they're from the UK, is that correct?
They are from the UK, yeah.
Yeah, I met a guy who worked with them back, it's been a decade or so ago on a plane, and he really said how much he liked working with them. And
nice.
That's really great that you got all these new activations coming in. It's underplay for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a cool experience.
Yeah. How did you get the idea for this?
I think it came about out of my natural inclination to continue to elevate music to the level that I feel like it's always been, but people don't necessarily recognize. Most people listen to music via various digital platforms, through YouTube, through Spotify, through Apple Music, through Tidal, what have you, or on the radio. And then there's also live shows, whether it's a club date or a larger scale concert or a festival. But when you think about music, there's so many other dimensions to it. There's the album artwork, there's covers, liner notes, lyrics, music videos. And I just want to bring the attention back to the fact that with music especially, there's so many different artists, so many different creative avenues that can be explored and engaged with. And I think it was important, especially during a time in society where we've had a disruption in the normal kind of standard way we engage with musicians, which is performances or what have you. So this is an opportunity for people to engage with artists in a different way.
It's a really forward-thinking thing you've got here. And walk us through the Museum of the Future Present. When you walk in, there's a tarot card reader. Is that just
there's
the last
a tarot
line?
card reader that was based off of an ad that I directed. Part of the work that I do includes not just developing or conceptualizing like products and different installations. It's also creating like ads for it. So it becomes like this like meta campaign. So there's an artist named Crystal Visions who I did a video with to promote a horrors tarot deck that my company Enjoy Cult Classics just recently released, and is part of Horror's new TV show called Cult Cable that they recently released as well. So I thought it was a cool way to combine the idea of the Museum of the Future Present, the idea of future and how we interact with music as being a great timekeeper. The melodic way that we go through the future is listening through music. So combining the idea of our fortunes, our future, with the idea of experiencing these moments of time that have to do with our engagement with music and musicians seemed to make sense. And it actually creates a very loose narrative of reflecting on our past, living in the present, and preparing or experiencing our future, not just having our future be the determining factor of our lives, us being the determining factor of the future.
That's really cool. Now the different rooms have a theme. Each I know it's like a retro kind of like 50s looking room with the old TV, and then
there's different elements of futurism. There's retrofuturism, elements of Afrofuturism with the Egyptian pyramids, Mesoamerican pyramids that do have, as it's been theorized in the past, the technology that we normally associate with the present is something that was also at least touched upon in the past with the feats of architecture and ingenuity that we can see from thousands of years in the past. So I'm just highlighting the idea that like we have this perpetual way of interacting with time, with innovation, with the world as being this constant cycle of creation and innovation.
I could go down a rabbit hole with you for hours about this. It's very interesting, and I've always like thought of like people in the past having like one sect of people who were really way more technologically advanced than the other parts, and then maybe just time and neglect may have killed some of these inventions and ideas that people may have developed that we don't even know about.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting to touch on it. There's also the idea of growing up in the 80s was a cool crossroads because you still had a lot of the media from the 50s and 60s that wasn't too far off. If you imagine that I was 5 years old in 1980, 20 years from that was 1966. So we could see the gradual, more actually rapid evolution of science, technology, science fiction, motion pictures, how things changed from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. If we look in the past 20 years, this is 2021. 20 years ago was 2001. And that's a totally different perspective when you think about between the 60s and the 80s and then 2001 to 2020. But time just keeps marching on. We have different ways that we're engaging with art and artists. And I think it just looking back, sometimes you have to look backwards to look forwards because everything happens in cycles. So respecting the retrofuturism of like 50s and 60s, even like as far back as Fritz Lang and Metropolis, like going into the 70s with different science fiction elements that were brought out of the great surge of like Star Wars inspired films that had amazing art direction and cool engagement, if not the huge budgets that you would see with a larger scale. There are still a lot of things to appreciate and to engage with on even some of the lower budget like experiences and films of that era.
Oh yeah, there's some incredible things. I love this comic book series called New Frontier, where it's like the Justice League basically reimagined as retro 50s, how it was, but they took a few modern twists on it and updated it. And
I've always liked that.
You know, the aesthetic's pretty awesome. And then I guess we were both fortunate too. I'm a bit older, but I did appreciate the fact in the 80s you actually could have things at your disposal like video cameras, and you had a lot more things to work with. It wasn't a chore to actually find the stuff to make cool art. And then we were the beneficiaries of that.
Yeah, if you notice, there's a lot of elements in the museum that have like old retrofitted TVs that are an homage to like a time with the old like actual box TVs that aren't just like the flat screens anymore. And then there's projections, there's arcade games, there's all sorts of these elements of kitsch and nostalgia that are like hugs from our former selves. And that's what I want to do too. That's why I have VHS tapes and things that like evoke a simpler, kind of less brutal time. So I'm trying to give people little hugs from their former selves.
It's a digital comfort food.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, man. This is really nice. How'd you get into music? How'd you get into art?
My parents are involved in music. My mom primarily is a songwriter and musician. My dad was a music manager. Both definitely supportive of the arts and me being an artist since I was younger. I initially wanted to be like a bass player in a punk band and a creative director, and that's essentially what I became growing up. So I've always stayed the course with the support of my family and friends.
You definitely are on your way, because I didn't realize how multifaceted your career was until recently when I saw the Thundercat stuff, and then in the band, but you're actually doing stuff in the management.
I work with management with him and with Flying Lotus. With Flying Lotus, I also designed like a lot of the DJ booths from the past 2 years. Me and my team have created different DJ facades for him, starting in Tokyo in 2019 into this Sunday at an event that he's doing at Hotel Cafe in LA. So it's something where if I find a way for me to express myself with my friends and to have a platform or an opportunity to create art that elevates and creates this expanded engagement between the audience and the artist, that's what I'm all for.
And that's all you can ask for, really. And how did your artist manage to navigate COVID? Was it difficult to take an artist like Thundercat and basically say, here's what we're going to do while we're locked down, here's what we're going to be working on?
It was more like us staying the course, trying to stay healthy, trying to stay safe, and seeing what we could do. It wasn't really a matter of necessarily like us dictating what was going to happen. I think we have definitely been in a situation now where we do have to yield to certain events, certain safety precautions, certain changes in our routines, and sometimes it's not always easy. In fact, it's been very difficult at times. But rather than seeing it as a complete hindrance to our creativity and our operations, I see there's just different opportunities for us to have alternative experiences, and that to me is like what you have to do in a situation like this. Just pivot.
Exactly. How long did you have to source things from LA? Did you fly a bunch of stuff out from LA, or did you gather stuff here?
There's a combination of both. There's stuff that was fabricated here. There's stuff that I brought from LA. There's stuff from another colleague of mine, Veronica Gessa from Media Pollution. She had some stuff in Houston that she brought out. So there's a combination of several elements of my team and the creators that I work with, and some of the assets that they have, and we just all came together. And we're still working. There's still like some installations that are coming up in the next few weeks, and I'm excited to get it done. Will
you be rotating out different rooms, or is it all is it semi kind of fixed as it is, or will you there's
going to be constant change?
Yeah, cool. That's exciting. It makes people want to go back several times.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that especially in the Instagram generation, it's a great photo op for all your friends and everything. And Native's been a great champion for bringing people in and having really cool events since they've been open. And it's a great combination, it looks like. And what are your have you been making any films, or do you do direct videos and films? Or
there is going to be an off film that we start working on next year, so that's like a major thing. And the last video I directed for a band called Proto Martyr in Detroit. I directed their animated video for I Am You Now from their latest album. I just did it last May, June. Came out last July. I'll probably be doing another music video with them in the fall.
Did you do the animation yourself, or did you outsource?
No, I have an animator. Like I basically just wrote, directed, and produced it, and I have my own like animation team, and I worked with Alex Leonard, the drummer from Proto Martyr, on the illustrations.
Very nice.
I have another, I guess, with Damian Abraham from Fucked Up. He has a podcast, and we've been working on doing some animated series for that too.
He's the nicest guy.
He's a very close friend of mine. He and I have a project. In fact, if we have time to do another Vanishing Life record, he will actually be included in it.
Man, I love that band. That was one of my, that's a great record, and one of my favorite things I saw at my party that day too. Because I think
Chicken Ranch Party. Yeah. He is now an additional member of the band.
That makes me happy. That's good news to hear that. I like that guy a lot. I like the band a lot too. And sure, Zach is pretty busy the next several months, hopefully.
Yeah, he's going to be on tour right now. Yeah, I've only seen him for a little bit of time, but still love for that crew.
Well, you got an open invite for next year's party if you guys can make it out.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, with off and my normal work, I have to see see how much I'm planning on playing. The love of touring is something that I like look back on and not necessarily look forward to these days, which is why Off is a good band for me, because it's not a band that I plan on touring a lot with. So it works out for me to have that balance, but I still enjoy playing on occasion.
Yeah, are you doing festivals mainly for Off?
We don't have anything planned right now. We're working on a record. We're working on a full-length album. We just signed a Fat Possum Records.
Oh, that's great. Good label, too.
And we are just working on our debut album for them, and then we're going to do shows here and there whenever we can.
Yeah, it's like Keith a lot. His book is really good, too.
Yeah. Keith is great. He's a great person to play with. I feel like we have a great rapport. We have great chemistry on stage and off.
Yeah, he seems like a really nice guy in real life, too. I've limited my conversations to him about 30 seconds of conversation, but he's very nice and kind. And
yeah, he's great. Yeah. And honestly, Vanishing Life was something that was inspired by Off. So the fact that I ended up in Off was kind of a great, interesting.
It's real like the Black Flag, early Black Flag kind of thing. It's intense, but I just, it's, and you see a lot of bands try to pull that off, and they just can't. It just doesn't have that genuine intensity to it to me. I hope I'm making sense, but it's got just that power, that just the real minimalist in and out fast songs. Awesome.
I like it. I used to just hit them and quit them.
The drummer was awesome last night too. He brought a little more of an element of kind of jazz noise to it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Like the John Zorn kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I love John Zorn.
Yeah, I've worked with Justin for years, him being like a regular cast member in the band Thundercat for the past 10 years, and being able to play with him was a great opportunity. Definitely glad that we all seized it and worked on it. Yeah,
it works out really well. The guitar player's effects table he had.
Dimitri, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't room for the last night for the effects pedal on the floor, so it was on the table.
Oh no, he used the table just because those are like hand effects. He's using it as noise effects.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it was great. It seems like the sound's evolving a little bit, but still the same mission, but it's a little bit more. It breathes a little more than it did. Yeah.
It's exciting, and I feel all those were new songs. All those were unreleased material. So it's cool.
They were. Yeah, it sounded. It's still very much. It's off, but it's also
for sure. Yeah.
It's a little bit maybe a little bit evolved.
For sure.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, what are your plans for the future as far as, I know this is going on until the end of the year, and then you've got Off, and then you've got some more video projects. So you do any solo records or anything?
No, I don't really have too much interest in doing a solo record. I do music here and there. Like the past few years, I worked on an Eamon Dunes record a few years ago, and there might be some other artists that I might play on, but primarily I'm more about doing experiences like this. I'll be working on a project in Southeast Asia, another experiential project there, and then some other activations.
Cool. You think you might tour this Museum of the Future Present?
It's something that is scalable, so I just have to see how it goes. Right now, I'm just happy to put this initial one on the books and to develop it and nurture that, and then just let things build from there.
It seems like it's not cost prohibitive to move it around. It's not like you're having to wheel 18-wheelers everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a lot of minutia to kind of...
Yeah, it's definitely scalable for sure. And it's, like I said, since there's a lot of projections and video screens, it's less risky than having too many interactive things that could be hobbled by the pandemic.
Yeah, and walk us through the merchandise you have for sale. You've got like a...
Index from Horror. We have the VHS version of Miami Nights from Hannibal Buress. We have a few different projects that we're working on with other artists. So yeah, just trying to do cool, unique things that are different from like just a regular t-shirt.
Oh yeah. How are things in LA? I heard they just had unlocked people down. Now I guess they're going back to maybe locking some things down for a bit. Huh?
It's like we have to, like I say, just yield to the nature of the times and see what happens. I'm just happy for people to experience any of the projects that I've got going on, to check out Off. We just put out a music video on the Metallica's Blacklist. We were one of the covers there.
That's great. Yeah, it was really nice. It's 55 bands or something.
Yeah. So just staying busy as usual. I like busy.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite records you've worked on as far as?
One of my favorite records that I've worked on, currently the Off record, is my favorite, obviously, because that's right in front of me, and we're about 3/4 done with that. And then there is definitely Lost Songs was my favorite Trail of Dead record. We recorded that in Germany, and that was a really cool record. We got really tight as a band, as a unit. It was a really cool experience. And that's about it for right now. There's definitely elements of every single project I've ever been in that I enjoy, but those are the current record and a record from 10 years ago runs the gamut of what I'm into.
That's cool. Yeah, it's got a great illustrious career. And what was the first record you played on, or the first band you played in?
Oh boy, I can't even remember, because I started playing in bands when I was like 14 or 15 years old.
Oh man, you're like a lifer. So you were a bass player originally, or did you play anything?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, my dream when I was like 13 years old is I wanted to play bass in a punk band. That's what I wanted to do.
Marching band kid at all, or
no? I just wanted to play bass in a punk rock band.
So you're just totally musically uninterested, like you just picked it up and taught yourself.
I started playing bass around then. A friend of mine showed me a couple things. I just took it from there. I listened to a bunch of old like Minutemen records, and then just started playing.
You can't get any better than that than Minutemen. Mike Watt's amazing, and it's interesting to hear people's stories. Sometimes you hear people who I've been classically trained, but I play in this punk band. It's things like that, and it's interesting people's journey. Were you an art major in high school, college, or
no? Like I was mainly into communications and theology. I grew up in a very religious background, so rejected that in favor of the arts.
What was your denomination?
I grew up a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh wow, okay. Got the watchtower and stuff.
I worked at World Headquarters.
Oh wow, that's interesting. What are your thoughts? I know this is a totally hackneyed question, but what about the whole Prince and Jehovah's Witness thing? That was
my thoughts on it.
Yeah. It was. I thought it was interesting. I heard stories of Prince going around actually house to house talking. to people.
That's a requirement. They all have to proselytize in order to fulfill their obligation to the religion and in their mind to their God. And I support people being happy and doing good work. And I appreciate a lot of aspects of my upbringing, and I have taken elements of it that I continue to believe in to this date. But it's more about, for me, just being a good person and not being overly judgmental, being tolerant. That's something that I always carry with me.
People's lifeline for their fellowship and being able to get out and be social. That's their social network is the church, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's interesting though that got the work ethic from the witnesses, which is pretty cool.
To a degree, mainly my parents. My mom's a real hard worker and definitely supportive of that. And then my parents are definitely supportive of me being an artist too.
Are you staying out in Austin during the installation part? Or are you going to be
back and forth? I have to head back to LA tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Seems like you have 2 or 3 jobs you're balancing and stuff.
My one job is just to do cool shit with my friends. Yeah. That's what I do. Sometimes that includes working in creative strategy or operations management or creative direction or performing. Basically, I just do creative-based work with other creatives.
Is there anyone that you have a dream client that you like to work with?
I already work with them.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's really weird how some of the clients pop up that you're like, I never thought I'd actually get to meet.
They're not really clients, they're friends. Yeah, I don't really have clients. I work with my friends.
Yeah, I like that attitude. I'll tell you what, we'll wrap up, and what we'll do is I'll get you to tell all the websites and all the projects. Just basically pitch the museum and kind of
I could just say the Museum of the Future Present at Native Hostel and Off the band that I play in, and those are the 2 things to mainly focus on.
It's 2 really great projects, and get out there if you can to the Museum of the Future Present here at Native Hostel. What are the hours actually every day?
I believe it's Wednesday through Sunday, like 3 p.m. to 11.
And it's all ages and nothing really offensive either because I'm not that yet. But still, it's Austin, so I think kids can deal with it. But I think it's a great thing to check out if you're in town. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, man.
I really
appreciate it. No, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So a big thank you to Autry Fulbright for the interview today. Really good, quick conversation. He is a very busy man getting this Museum of the Future Present set up. Hope you'll check it out. It runs Wednesday through Sunday, I believe, 3 to 11. And it's a great installation. A lot of pop-up artists will be coming this way to town. So, definitely check it out. And a big thanks for tuning in. You can drop us an email, ranch@chickenranchrecords.com. And we'll be back very soon with another episode. Thank you for tuning in.